Hi, this is Crow for crowscrapology.com. Go to our website. You can watch us on YouTube on Crow's Crapology 2 on YouTube, and you can go to our Facebook page, Crow's Crapology. So we're going to talk about college football. We're here for your weekly college football update and the playoff situation. So 4 teams in the playoffs this year. Next year we get 12 teams. So there'll be some real whining and complaining and crying and attempted suicides next year. These crazy college football fans that think their team should be in the top 12. Even if their team did get in 12, they'd probably have to play number 1 or something. I don't know if they're going to have buys for the top seeded teams or how they're going to play it. It would probably make sense that you would have maybe the top 4 teams would get a bye and the other 8 would play. But anyway, we'll see. I mean, there'll be some real people will be going crazy that their team should be in the top 12. Even though the team probably has no chance to win a national championship, they'll still be complaining and crying. So anyway, this year we have 4 teams in the playoff again. You have to go to the NCAA committee rankings. That's the rankings that count. That's who gets in the playoffs. The NCAA is still involved in college football. They have this committee that they use some software program. They use a software program, and then they use some coaches' votes and their own personal opinion to get the 4 teams, to determine the 4 teams that get in the playoff and to play for the national championship. So right now they do have Ohio State number 1, which we don't agree with. We think Michigan's number 1. But they have Ohio State number 1. Ohio State, the Buckeyes, out of Columbus, Ohio. So Ohio State, they have number 1. They have Georgia number 2. We agree Georgia should be number 2. They have Michigan number 3. We think Michigan's the number 1 team in the country. They have Florida State number 4. Dun, 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 dun. And number 5, we think team that's still in it, the Washington Huskies. We think the Huskies still have a chance, maybe. Looked at the schedule. Ohio State's going to lose to Michigan. Will that knock them out of the top 4 or not? We don't know. But anyway, so we have Ohio State number 1. This week they played Michigan State. That's a 7:30 Eastern time game. They play, put glasses on. They play like Michigan the Saturday after Thanksgiving, traditional. And they play who in between? I should know this by heart now. What's their other game? Minnesota. They play Minnesota as their other game. So Ohio State, they have Michigan State this week, Minnesota, and then Michigan. So they should be able to beat Minnesota. They should lose to Michigan. So we'll see. That's going to take them, if they're still number 1 at that point, will that take them to number 5? Or will that keep them in the top 4? Georgia, and Ohio State right now is 9-0. Georgia is 9-0, also undefeated. This week at 7 o'clock Eastern time, they play Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss Rebels. That's a tough game for them. I think that's a dangerous game. Lane Kiffin has come off of some upsets before. He's beaten Alabama a few times. He was offensive coordinator for Nick Saban at Alabama, though, before. So that is a game to watch. Georgia also has Georgia Tech, their last game of the season. And in between, they have the Tennessee Volunteers in Knoxville. Shouldn't be a problem for Georgia. If they get by Ole Miss, they should be able to win the last 2. Number 3, Michigan, they have Penn State in the Fox game of the week at 12 noon Eastern time. They play Ohio State on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. They should be able to beat them. Their offensive and defensive line is much bigger and more efficient than Ohio State. Their defense should be able to rattle the quarterback McCord for Ohio State and shut down the Ohio State running game. So Michigan should be able to beat Ohio State. They have on their schedule, they have Maryland in between. They should be able to beat Maryland. So they should go through undefeated. Florida State's 9-0. They play Miami this week, which turned out to be a pretty bad team. We thought they were going to be okay. We thought they were going to be in the top 20. They lost to Georgia Tech, maybe one of the worst teams in Division I football. So Florida State has Miami. They have that tough North Alabama squad, which we know a lot of pro football players come out of North Alabama. That's really, it's a major football powerhouse in the NCAA. And then they have to play Florida in the traditional Florida rivalry game the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So that's the top four. Who's in the top four right now? So Florida State should be able to get through that undefeated. We're thinking Ohio State's the only team that's going to have a loss. Georgia could get upset by Ole Miss. You never know. But number 5, we think still has a chance, is the Washington Huskies. They're 9-0 also. They play Utah, who's tough defensively. Kyle Whittingham is really one of the best coaches in college football. He has really not very much talent on offense, and they still win games. They're still ranked. They're still ranked in the top 20, I think. Top 25, anyway. And then Washington has to play the Oregon State Beavers, who are also tough defensively, and DJ Uiagalelei at quarterback. He's been very good, by the way, and I would draft him. If I was an NFL team, I would be looking to draft him. He's one of the quarterbacks that's like he could play in the NFL. Then Washington, their last game, they need to play Utah this week and get through them. Play the Oregon State Beavers with DJ Uiagalelei, whatever his name is, Uiagalelei. And then they got to play the Apple Cup the Saturday after Thanksgiving against Washington State Cougars, which anything could happen in the Apple Cup. So, I mean, there's been years where Washington State's won like 3 games the whole year and they win the Apple Cup over Washington, who was like 8-1 going in. Okay, and then below that, I don't think the 6th team or any of these other teams have a chance to get in the 14 playoff. So, that's it. Ohio State's 9-0. They play at Michigan State. They play Minnesota, then they play Michigan. Or Georgia's number 2, 9-0. They play Ole Miss this week. They play Tennessee and Knoxville, and then Georgia Tech. Michigan 9-0, number 3. They play at Penn State. They play Maryland, and then they play Ohio State. Florida State's 9-0. They play Miami this week. They play North Alabama, which is the real trap game, and then Florida. Number 5 is the Washington Huskies. They're 9-0. They play Utah this week, then the Oregon State Beavers, and then the Apple Cup against the Washington State Cougars. Florida State, Florida, I don't know what they call that game. We'll have to look that up. So, anyway, we'll see if Ohio State, realistically, Ohio State should lose to Michigan. That should be their only loss. Will that knock them out of the top 4 and put Washington up in there or not? I don't know. We'll see what happens. With this crazy college football rankings. Next year, like I said, we'll have 12 teams in. So we'll have a few more teams and some more craziness and some more whining, complaining for people. And this is Crow's Crapology. Go to crowscrapology.com. Go to our Facebook page, Crow's Crapology, and watch us on YouTube, Crow's Crapology 2 on YouTube. Thank you. Goodbye. Watch college football.